A few days ago, I put out my 5 stocks I'm buying for December video, and one of those stocks I did buy here today, okay? And why did I buy it specifically today? Why not another day? Why $5,000 today? What did I do there? And all those sorts of things, okay? The stock is, you might know this one, PayPal. $5,000 today specific, right? I bought shares and options. I'll show you both here in just a moment. And we'll talk about why today specific, because there's actually 3 reasons why I made this move today and not like tomorrow or the next week or something like that, okay? So first thing is I bought 77 shares here. This was 4,400 and some change there in terms of the straight up shares I bought. And then I also decided to put a small amount, so about 10% of the money into options. So 90% went into shares and about 10% roughly went into options. And what I would decide to go with is options that expire January of 2026. Now, if I do anything in the options market, it's got to be small, right? Because I don't really like the feeling of being under a time constraint. So this is like, it's 10% of the allocation, right, of today's allocation. So I went ahead and bought $95 strike prices. I paid $5 for those. And so, these babies expire January of 2026, January 16th, 2026 to be exact. And here's kind of how things look here, right? If PayPal stock in January 2026 is, let's say, $100 a share, right? Which I would kind of be disappointed if PayPal stock is only $100 in January 2026. I would actually consider it a borderline failed investment if PayPal shares are only $100 in January 2026. I would be disappointed. But if it's $100, I'll get my $500 back. If it's $150 a share come January 2026, which I think is pretty realistic, then that'll be worth $5,000. If the stock's $200 a share, my $500 will then be worth about $10,000. And if the stock's $300 a share, which would be back to all-time highs that it hit back in kind of 2020, 2021, $20,000, the $500 would then be worth, right? But here's the thing. I'm probably not holding it all the way to January 2026. If this stock goes on a beast run next year, and let's say this time next year the stock's sitting at $110, $130 or something like that, at that point in time, I would likely cash out. Because at that time, let's say the stock's 120 at this time next year. It has a beast run in 2024. It's a $120 stock. It basically doubles up next year. Okay, so my options, my $5 strike options there would be, or $5 in premium I paid there. Those would probably be, I would think those would probably be worth 70, 75, something like that. I'd probably just get out of it at that point in time and say, screw it. It's and just flip that into shares and play it safe at that point in time. So that's kind of my thought process. If the stock goes beast over the next year, get out of those, go ahead and run that money into shares. And, that can be that at that point in time. Or it can run into a different stock if I think there's a better opportunity at that particular time, right? Now, next question is why today? And there's 3 core reasons why I went ahead and made that move here today and not like tomorrow or next week or next month or something like that, right? Which, by the way, I'm going to be buying PayPal stock every week for the next several weeks. So that's something to keep in mind, okay? First reason is it was a big downward day. PayPal was down as much as 4% here today. So I thought, okay, nice big downward day. Let's go ahead and make a move on that. That was reason number 1. Reason number 2, a little more complicated. We're running down on time for tax loss harvesting. And so I think there's a little bit of tax loss harvesting that could probably come still in PayPal in the month of December, but I think we're starting to run out of those sorts of folks. So, like I said, I think there's a little bit more still to come, but I don't think there's a lot more to come in regards to tax loss harvesting. Tax loss harvesting is the people that, let's say, bought PayPal stock years ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever. They're down on their shares, and they're saying, I want to, take that loss, write it off against some gains they got in the market. There's a lot of stocks that have done tremendous this year. Say you own Meta, you got a bunch of shares in Meta, you sold off some of your Meta shares, and you don't want to pay tax on that, so you write off your PayPal stock, right? But you've got to take the loss on that, so you've got to actually sell your shares, right? And then you can't buy it back until at some point in the first quarter of 2024, then, right? So I think there's a little bit left, but I don't think there's that much. And so if I thought there was a ton of tax loss harvesting still to come in PayPal, I would not have made that move today. I think there's probably a minimal amount left in regards to that, okay? The third reason is this news that just broke out here today, okay? So internal memos got leaked at PayPal. And basically, new PayPal CEO fast-tracks upgrades to beat back competition. Now, first thing up here is, from what I read, in this memo that was leaked out there, I don't think this is a defensive move. I think this is an offensive move. I saw the media was kind of portraying this as like a defensive move. I don't think Alex Chriss even thinks defensive. I think he thinks offensive, just to be honest. I think they're coming to eat people's lunch, not trying to protect their lunch. There's a difference. PayPal is coming to eat other people's lunch. There's a difference, okay? New PayPal CEO Alex Chriss is fast-tracking an effort to bolster the company's defenses, this is the way the media is pitching it, against Stripe and Apple Pay, highlighting how the payments giant has fallen behind newer, sleeker competition. No, they have not. They just haven't. It's just not factual at all. Like, what are they talking about here, man? It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. But anyways, okay, that's the way the media portrays it. Teams across the payments giant have been racing to add a slew of new features to make its digital wallet and online payment more attractive for shoppers and merchants, two employees said. Part of a project codenamed Quantum Leap that launched weeks after Chriss joined at the end of September. They're working on a tight timeline with the goal of making meaningful progress by January and rolling out the changes widely, likely around March is what they're talking about here, okay? And so, once again, the media is portraying this as a defensive move. I don't think so. I think Alex Chriss is playing offense here, and I think he wants to get out in front of everybody, and I think he wants to just, and the thing is here, okay, and the reason I would be worried if I was anybody that had to try to compete against PayPal, Venmo, or Braintree, Alex Chriss isn't gonna lay off the gas. Whatever you see them come out with in March, that's just a start. He's going to keep going, and he's going to move. I think he's probably going to move way faster than any of their competitors. Apple Pay is just one of a million things inside Apple Corporation, right? What else is their competitor? They want to say Stripe on the Braintree side, Stripe's a formidable competitor, but they're starting to get bureaucratic because they've reached such kind of dominant market share there now at this point in time. Like, who else is their competition? Cash App, Cash App's got its group of individuals that use that service, but it's not the, So what I'm looking at, is Alex Chriss is going to keep the pedal to the metal, and whatever they come out with in March is just a start. And then they're going to keep moving. It's not like he's going to, whatever they're creating right now and they launch in March, it's not like he's like, okay, we're good now. No. He's going to keep going and keep going and keep going. I think he's going to probably put the company in a position where they're going to move faster than anybody else is moving in the industry, which is no one's expecting that from PayPal. No one's expecting that. You see the way the media is portraying all this. Defense, defense, defense. Dude, I don't think Alex Chriss thinks defense. He's thinking offense 100%. And so, maybe the last CEO, Dan Schulman, he might have been a little bit more of a defensive thinker. His history come back from Amex. He might think a little more defensive. Alex Chriss thinking offensive. And the best defense in business is a great offense. So that's a little food for thought there, right? And so with PayPal, right, continue to buy the stock up to, this is in the public count now at this point in time. I put $126,000 in the stock so far. I'm up to 1,930 shares. I'm going to continue to buy this baby. And to show you kind of where my conviction's at, if you look at past positions I built up in the public count, right? Second stock of these 5 stocks that I'm planning on buying in December of 2023. Everybody should know this stock was going to be on this list. Every person watching this video right now, you should know this stock was going to be on the list, okay? Because I've been buying it heavily the last several months. What stock is it? Say it with me. PayPal. Yes, PayPal indeed, okay? So PayPal is starting to roll. The stock's up over 16% in the past month. I'm saying please chill. I'm not quite done buying you. I'm getting close, but I'm not quite done buying you, PayPal. So chill a little bit here. I need to buy more shares, okay? Where I want to start with PayPal is Alex Chriss, latest conference call, knocked out of the ballpark. Man came in, took charge. He's going to be much more transparent than the old management team was with the numbers. This man comes from Intuit. Intuit's one of the most loved companies in the entire stock market. Literally, look at Intuit's returns over the last 10, 20 years. It's going to shock you, okay? He understands, Intuit, to put this into, and he's one of the most important people at Intuit the last 10, 15 years. To put this into context, Intuit's stock in the last 15 years has gone up more than 20%, 11 of those 15 years, and only gone down once in the last 15 years. What Intuit's done has been incredible, and Alex Chriss is a huge component of that. If not, if he's not the biggest component, he's certainly one of the biggest components of Intuit's success over time and understanding how to build a great company across the board, okay? Now, when it comes to PayPal specifically, There's a magical business model because they have three components to their business, and that's why it reminds me so much of Meta. Valuation basis, but also like having three big businesses. If I think about Meta, I think about, which is the biggest position for me in the public account, right? I think we're up close to $400,000 in that position. If I think about Meta, I think about Facebook, I think about Instagram, and I think about WhatsApp. If I think about PayPal, I think about PayPal, Venmo, and Braintree. Three huge businesses. Now, they all compete differently, right? If I look at the common trait with all three of the business lines, payments and transactions. Payments and transactions, okay? That's where all three are kind of line up, right? PayPal competes more with the consumer, but also small, mid, and large-sized companies use PayPal, right? That's huge. I mean, if you go to a lot of retailers' checkout pages on e-commerce, you're going to find an option to pay with PayPal, right? If I think about Venmo, very consumer-oriented. Now, I do believe Venmo is going to become much more important to small and mid-sized businesses over the coming years, but right now it's very consumer-related. If you go to a college campus and somebody needs to transfer somebody money, they're using Venmo, okay? Braintree, on the flip side, this is the back-end service, so you can run transactions and whatnot. And Braintree really competes with mid and large companies. Like that's who they're trying to grab. They're trying to grab the company with 1,000 employees, 10,000 employees, 100,000 employees, big companies to use Braintree as their payment processor and their kind of back-end when it comes to anything payment related. Okay, so these companies are magical, and what makes PayPal and Venmo so magical is two things. Scale, both of them have scale. They're both of the most downloaded apps on a given day and the most used apps in the finance category day in and day out in the United States of America, and PayPal's huge worldwide as well. So do keep that in mind. Whereas Venmo is really United States based, PayPal's massive around the world. Like PayPal's number 5 most popular finance related app pretty much in almost every developed market you could possibly imagine. So scale makes the magic with these companies. The second component is convenience. Convenience. These companies make your life easier. I mean, I know there's so many purchases that, when I'm checking out a website and it gives me that option to pay with PayPal, I'm like, heck yeah, because then it just scans my face and then it's just everything's through. I don't have to worry about entering my address. I don't have to worry about entering my phone number, my email, my name, the credit card. I don't have to worry about any of that. It's just boom, it's all done right there, okay? Scale and convenience is everything, and that's why PayPal and Venmo are so massive, okay? Now, when it comes to Braintree, what makes this magical is two things: more conversion and more convenience if you're a business. If you use Braintree, you're going to be able to convert higher, and you're going to basically make your customers' lives easier. And if you make your customers' lives easier, you're going to have more conversion. Like anybody that runs a business of any kind, you know this, right? And so when it comes to Braintree, they have it so you can pay with Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Apple Pay, Google Pay, Venmo, PayPal, Buy Now, Pay Later, Visa checkout, MasterCard checkout, Samsung Pay. You can pay any way, which is magical because nowadays especially, people like to pay different ways. Not everybody wants to pay with a Visa credit card. Not everybody wants to pay with an American Express credit card. Not everybody wants to pay with PayPal. Not everybody wants to pay with Apple Pay. Like, people love to pay with a lot of different ways. And so Braintree can make you, as a big business, be able to have all these different options. So whatever way your customer wants to pay, if you're Uber Eats, if you're DoorDash, whatever, your customers can pay that way. That's magical, okay? PayPal has a good balance sheet on this company, almost $7 billion in cash equivalents. That number's probably going to be bigger, but then again, they are doing share buybacks right now, so it could decrease. We'll see. $4.7 billion in short-term investments, another almost $4 billion in long-term investments, and they have about $10.5 billion of long-term debt on this company overall for total equity of right around $20 billion for the company overall. Now, here's the deal. We're buying PayPal for the future, right? And the future is looking pretty dang good for PayPal. Analysts have the company growing EPS about 12% this coming year in 2024. I think they're probably going to beat that. But even if they only did 12%, which is, by the way, is a very impressive number, that puts them at a 10 PE based upon next year numbers. Like, that's ridiculously low. That's way too low for a company like PayPal. It's insane. As far as their revenue growth goes, 8.7% expected. Don't be surprised if they outgrow that number. You've seen some of these Black Friday numbers, these Cyber Monday numbers. Wouldn't be surprised if they outgrow that quite a bit. And especially if the consumer's in a better spot next year because of inflation coming down. Here's the deal. PayPal's a cash flow machine. There's no debating that. And their cash flows are likely going to continue to build heavily in 2024 and 2025, right? Now they can go ahead and use all that cash flow to do acquisitions or things like that. I don't think they really need to do that. They got PayPal, Venmo, and Braintree. I don't think they need to do any acquisitions. So what they can use that money for is to buy back more shares at very cheap prices. And anything under $100 for PayPal is extremely cheap. So they got a bit of time here to buy back as many shares as possible, right? Buy back shares at cheap prices, boost up that earnings per share, right? Because they're taking more and more shares off the market. And so it's a phenomenal situation, right? My prediction is in 24 to 36 months from now, everybody's going to look back and they're going to say, dang, man, remember when PayPal was a $50, $60 stock in 2023? We should have been buying it. That's my thought in regards to this. It might even happen next year. We might even be next year. People are looking back and saying, remember when PayPal was 50 something? I should have probably been buying some shares. Like that would seem, I didn't realize how good of a deal that was on such a great company. Like we had it, right? That's my prediction. So we'll see how it all plays out. I'm adding as many shares as I possibly can right now. I'm getting, as many shares maxed out. Okay. And so that's PayPal stock. That's number 2. Number 3 stock of these 5 stocks up here that I'm going to be buying in December 2023 is Cheesecake Factory. So Cheesecake Factory starting to roll a bit. This one's up about 9.6% in the past month. Reason being is some of the small caps that started to show strength, and Cheesecake's under a $2 billion market cap, so it is a small cap company. It pays about a 3.5% dividend yield. So the nice thing is I actually just collected Cheesecake Factory dividend payments. I believe it was this week. Cheesecake Factory paid me out in all my different accounts that I own the stock in. So that's kind of a nice thing to just get that dividend cash flow and see it in your accounts. Okay. Now, when it comes to Cheesecake Factory, obviously, super famous restaurant brand in the United States of America. I think if you live in the United States of America, you've probably seen Cheesecake Factory before. You might have eaten at it before, okay? Huge menu. They're known for their massive menu. They're very dominant in the U.S., but they are starting to build their business internationally in the Cheesecake Factory. They're starting to build a decent amount of locations in the Middle East, which they have a lot of room for growth there. Starting to build some locations in China, which they have a lot of growth ahead in China, and building some locations in Mexico as well. If I really think about the market that could be massive for Cheesecake Factory, I really think about China specifically. I really think I don't know, man. I don't want to get too bullish on China, but there is a potential Cheesecake Factory long term could be bigger in China than the United States. And that's just, today it's not even remotely close. No, on top of that, they have this massive growth opportunity. So Cheesecake Factory really has a lot of growth opportunity internationally, although they are still building locations in the United States. It's really international. But they also own North Italia, which North Italia is phenomenal Italian food, actually some of the best Italian food you'll find anywhere out there. And North Italia just has insane growth ahead. They put up these ridiculous numbers. People come back and they spend a lot on alcohol at North Italia too. That's a heavy part of their mix, which if you know the restaurant business, that's where the money's at, okay? People buy bottles of wine there. They love it. Absolutely love it, okay? They also own many of these other restaurant concepts, Blanco, Flower Child, Culinary Dropout, and many others. And if you live in Arizona or you ever go to Arizona, you can experience a lot of these. I have a house in Arizona, which right now I'm actually renting out that house, but I'm renting it out to somebody. But when I would spend a lot of time in Arizona, when we used to have a lot more time to go to Arizona, I would go to all these different concepts. I was so impressed by all of them. I'm like, damn, man, they're packed. I'm like, these might have huge potential. This might be the next North Italia. This might be the next Cheesecake Factory. The concepts. I'm looking at this company. I'm like, they have 10, 20, 30, 40 years of growth ahead in all their different restaurant concepts. It's ridiculous, right? They're going to accelerate their restaurant openings over the coming years, which I think is a very intelligent decision. No, when it comes to company, their volumes are unmatched. Cheesecake Factory puts up the biggest volumes of anybody. They even beat Texas Roadhouse, which Texas Roadhouse, with how much volume Texas Roadhouse will move on a Friday night, Saturday night, it's ridiculous. And they actually far outsell even somebody like a Texas Roadhouse. Moderate check, average checks around $29 roughly at Cheesecake Factory, and they've built their off-premise sales substantially. If you go back in the day, I would say off-premise, which is basically just selling to-go food, was a very small component of Cheesecake Factory, almost non-existent. And now, after Rona, it's a huge component of the business overall. Their latest quarter, they reported an A- income statement, which is very, very good. I graded an A-. They brought down a lot of their cost expenses in terms of percent of revenue. They were able to, they were able to get their income from operations to go up quite substantially, and that was at about $19 million. And they were able to have their earnings per share go up substantially versus where they were at last year. And keep in mind, that's all while, in Cheesecake Factory has been putting up these good numbers with inflation, right? And that causes inflation in wages, inflation in, obviously, the commodities that go into the products to make the food, right? And on top of that, you have inflation that you have to deal with your consumer, right? The consumer's been hit by inflation, which hurts business. So they've been putting up these very impressive numbers in a tough environment, man, very tough. And if you look at Cheesecake Factory, even in the great financial crisis, company did tremendous. Look at the revenues, look at the profitability, even back in the great financial crisis. So this company's weathered, think about what they've weathered over the past 15 years. They weathered the great financial crisis and did just fine. They got through Rona, which was the worst possible situation where the restaurants were literally closed, like for months. That was crazy, right? They got through that. And then they've gotten through this huge 1970s-ish inflation that we just had to go through. I mean, you go through all that, you're an impressive company in the restaurant space, I can tell you that. And they've done it, right? No, here's the deal. Company trades at about 10 times expected 2024 numbers. They're expected to have about 17% EPS growth next year, about 6% revenue growth. I don't dispute those numbers. That's kind of what I'm expecting roughly as well. If they come in through and they beat those numbers, great. But I'm not expecting some sort of, huge up numbers. This is a sleep well at night stock. A sleep well at night stock. I can add Cheesecake Factory. I can collect my dividends on this. I think I'm going to get good share price appreciation over the coming years, and everything's beautiful in regards to that. So I love owning this one. I want to own a lot more shares of this one. And I'll probably be buying this one for at least the next several months. I would put it like that, okay? Alrighty, so